What's going on, everybody? I'm Matt Harmon. Welcome to the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast, and it is a hell of a day to talk ball. It is a packed day to talk ball because there is a lot going on in the NFL right now. There's waiver wire picks, there's panic in the street, there's quarterback news, and here to break it all down with me is my good buddy, Justin Boone. Boone, what's going on, man?
What's happening, Harmon? Like, what a day indeed. Like, now we're like settling into it, right? Like, week one is done. Now we're almost done with week two. We are in the mix of things. And today it was just like we were taking shots left and right. You're trying to update things and boom, another quarterback might miss this week. And ones that we weren't even expecting, injuries that were popping up out of nowhere. But that's kind of the fun of the season, right? Trying to react to all this stuff on the fly. So that's what they pay us to do.
That is what they pay us to do. And by no means am I ever complaining. I love having this job. I have no freaking clue what I'd be doing if I wasn't doing this. But it was definitely, I mentioned this when you asked me what my hobbies were on the last preview show. Yeah. And my best answer was I take a walk every day, which is a pathetic thing to say for my hobby. But yes, I was taking my morning walk today, finishing the Jurassic Park novel, by the way, weighted vest and all, got my cup of coffee, feeling great. And then oh, wow, look at that. Yeah, if you're watching this
for
on
everyone
YouTube,
listening at home, I'm actually weirdly wearing a Jurassic Park shirt.
That is crazy. Yeah, never read the book. And I guess I still haven't read it, but I listened to it, and very different from the movie. A lot of different things, a lot of different twists, which was pretty cool. Great movie, of course, as well. But anyways, my point of that is, I'm got my cup of coffee, got my Jurassic Park. I'm doing the whole thing, and then you get the news alert at like 7:30 a.m. Eastern. Yep, Joe Burrow out for 3 months, and which we kind of knew was coming, but just like, oh my God, it's gonna be. And my thought was, it's going to be one of those days. And I had no idea just how much one of those days it was going to be. So we have a ton to get into here. Here's how this show is going to break down. First segment, we are going to kind of make our own little panic meter here because we're going to talk about the offenses that have lost their starting quarterback for some length of time here in the first segment. Then we get to your email submissions to the panic meter in the second segment. Third segment, that is the social media submissions to the panic meter. And our fourth and final segment is an expanded look at this week's waiver wire because there is a lot going on. There are players that are going to be missing here for the next few weeks. So without further ado, Boone, let's jump into the post week 2 people's panic meter.
Would you say it's time for everyone to panic?
Yes, I would, Kent.
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening.
No. Wait.
Everybody stay calm. Everybody stay calm.
What's the procedure?
Stay calm.
I am not saying calm. Panic meter is presented by Dentech, protecting your teeth from fantasy stress one matchup at a time. And boy, are we going to need it. For a reminder for the new people out there, we have 4 tiers in the People's Panic Meter. No panic, some panic, total panic, and the coping corner. We'll see if we finally get a coping corner candidate in this episode. But let's break down these 4 major quarterback injuries that we got today, starting with the Bengals in a post-Joe Burrow world. If you have been living under a rock, like Patrick Starr, and you haven't seen this yet for some reason, we found out this morning that Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow is indeed going to need toe surgery that will sideline him a minimum, and I've seen some of the doctors point out the key word here is minimum of 3 months. That would put him a timeline to return like mid-December. So Boone, what are we thinking about the Bengals now that we do not have Joe Burrow? And as we'll get to later, we're going to be watching a Jake Browning versus Vikings quarterback Carson Wentz barn burner on Sunday. So my things change quickly around here. What are your updated thoughts on the Bengals offense without Joe Burrow?
My updated thoughts is it's too early in the season for a Carson Wentz, Jake Browning matchup, but it is what it is. If we're looking at the Bengals offense now, you want to give like a blanket statement, but I feel like we have to kind of go player by player on it because you look at Jamar Chase and what he's done with Jake Browning in the past and what he did this weekend. I think he's going to be okay. Like there's some panic just based on the fact that the offense isn't going to be as successful. They're not going to sustain as many drives. They're not going to be in scoring position as often. But it really seems like Browning just locks in on Chase and throws to him consistently. Like 16 targets in this game where Browning played the majority of the game. If they're going to do that, and it seems like that's what Browning has done in the past as well, then Chase is going to make up for all those other things with the volume. And we know he's talented enough to score from anywhere. I think he'll probably be okay. A slight bump down for him, maybe, more of a top 5 fantasy receiver, a mid-range wide receiver 1 for fantasy and not the wide receiver 1 overall, but just a little bit of panic on him. Now, when you start to go to the other guys, that's where it starts to become concerning because all that volume that's going Chase's way isn't necessarily going to T. Higgins. And I think that's where we get into it, and that's where it becomes more total panic for me. T. Higgins really thrives in this offense when Joe Burrow is the one slinging it around. Joe Burrow can sustain multiple fantasy producers, very high-level fantasy producers, and Jake Browning, I'm not so sure about that. So I think T. Higgins now falls down into the low-end wide receiver 2 range. Even the wide receiver 3 is going to be a really volatile asset. You're going to need him to find the end zone probably to come through for you. It's really unfortunate for a guy that had top 12 upside when Burrow was out there. Now, Chase Brown is another one where he's going to see a lot of volume, but the reason Burrow's hurt right now is because that offensive line has not been playing very well. And that also hurts Brown, right? Like, it's not doing him any favors either. So I think for him, we're kind of in between like some panic and total panic. And if I had to lean one way, it would be towards total panic, because in the ideal scenario where everyone was healthy in this offense, we saw what he could do last year and what he came through with. He was a top 10 fantasy running back. That's how I was drafting him this year. That's what we were expecting from him. Now with Jake Browning out there, I don't think his ceiling is as high. I think we're looking at him more as like an RB2. He might have some RB1 weeks when he finds the end zone, but it's a really unfortunate situation all around. And with Chase, it's like we're just kind of going, okay, he's going to get enough volume. He's talented enough. He'll get through. But you don't feel great about this offense at all when Joe Burrow's not out there under center.
I will say that, obviously since we've seen Jake Browning play for the Cincinnati Bengals before, we do have a lot of data on this. So since 2023, Joe Burrow has averaged 7.54 adjusted yards per attempt with a 50% success rate offensively. In that same time span, so since 2023, obviously it's a much smaller sample size, Jake Browning has posted 7.3 and 47.7%. We're not talking about a cataclysmic drop-off. And a big part of that is, and I know this has like been a big point of consternation, not just with Bengals fans, but with NFL fans in general, is when, and you saw some of this even on Sunday, Boone, when Jake Browning's in the game, the Bengals coaching staff kind of starts to push all the little fun, buttons. They get under center more. They use more play action. If you can't tell, I wrote a piece about this for the site this morning. And remember, we are reading again in 2025. So we are reading this piece here on the website. We're reading Boone's work. All right. So make sure we're doing that. But Jake Browning, much more effective out of play action. Their plays and percentage of dropbacks with like pre-snap motion at the snap goes up from about 40, goes up to about 45% with Jake Browning from 36.3% with Joe Burrow. And a lot of that is because Joe Burrow doesn't want to necessarily play that way. He wants to get in the shotgun and be the typical field general type quarterback. But the coaching staff knows, like, yeah, Jake Browning might be a nice backup quarterback. He ain't Joe Burrow. They need to alter the offense. And I think a lot of that points to a lot of what you said about Jamar Chase, that because of, especially now, the way that they use him, which is different than the way they used him in that 2023 season, he's playing more in the slot than ever. He's running more routes off the line of scrimmage. He's in motion a lot more. I absolutely think he can still be, bare minimum, like a top 10 fantasy receiver with Jake Browning, not to mention the fact that like Jamar is just better. He's an even better player now than he was in 2023 when he had a pretty nice stretch of games with Jake Browning under center. But couldn't agree with you more that T. Higgins becomes very volatile, because what goes up, must come down, in a way that if somebody's going to be getting all the move around fun stuff, and that is Jamar Chase in this offense, the guy that is going to play more on the line of scrimmage and just true X receiver stuff, the higher degree of difficulty plays in terms of the throws, that's been T. Higgins. So, I mean, I don't know what, Boone, he's still probably like a low-end wide receiver 2, maybe a high-end wide receiver 3, but I know you feel this when you do weekly rankings. The position's pretty stocked with like appealing options all throughout down the draft board that I can see with a team that's about to play. I believe they go at Minnesota, at Denver, Detroit, and then Green Bay the next 4 weeks. It's going to be tough to like really boost Higgins up the rankings in those scenarios.
Yeah, I mean, guys like Rome Odunze and stuff are moving up the board. Like, I would rather have him and play him over Higgins now, right? George Pickens, all those guys in that range. So, yeah, he's going to fall quite a bit. And it's going to look even worse, I think, coming up. And again, not as worried about Chase, but for these other guys, you look at the schedule, not to put my schedule hat on again here, Harmon, but
put it on,
the
baby.
Vikings in week 3, the Broncos in week 4, the Lions in week 5, that Packers defense in week 6. Like, if you are worried about some of these guys, you probably want to trade them as soon as you can. Like, maybe you let it kind of just wear off a little bit hearing about the Burrow news, and later in the week you try something, but it could get ugly very, very quick with that kind of schedule coming up here over the next month or so.
I don't really know how strongly I feel about the Chase Brown stuff. He is a guy that, he's survived off volume. He is the only running back in the NFL who owns a 100% share of his team's rush attempts right now from a running back perspective, and he leads all running backs with percentage of team running back touches overall. I don't think that's going to change. I don't think anybody's coming for his job. And my kind of pet theory about this with the Jake Browning stuff is that because Browning goes under center more, 12.5% kind of he's sub 20% is Joe Burrow in terms of snaps under center since 2023. Browning is a little bit higher at 23%, 13.8% for Burrow, 23.1% snaps under center for Jake Browning. That does allow you to run the ball a little bit better, marry the run and pass game a bit better. But bottom line perspective is this Bengals team right now ranks 31st heading into Monday Night Football in yards before contact created on their running back runs. So not great. I think week 3 is a big test point for Chase Brown because you can run on that Vikings defense, even if it's a little bit, even if it's a little bit dangerous to throw against. So I kind of come down more on some panic with Chase and some panic on Chase Brown, but definitely with you that I'm closer to total panic on the T. Higgins stuff. It just it is what it is. Okay, let's move to the next quarterback injury here. A little bit less of a deal because, man, week 1 Jets offense, we didn't see a lot of that in week 2, but Justin Fields is in concussion protocol. We actually have Aaron Glenn's soundbite on Justin Fields. If we want to hear that here, we can go ahead and play that one.
Yeah, he's in the protocol right now, and it's always a hard one to really just try to evaluate until we get more information. So I'm sure I'll be giving you guys more information as the week progresses. Yeah.
So yeah, great update there from Coach Aaron Glenn. He's in the concussion protocol. Typically, these guys miss games with a concussion. Boone, we'll just spoil this one right now. I kind of said no panic on this one because Justin Fields coming off a terrible game. Not going to get any worse, right? I mean, he set a record in terms of completion percentage under expectation. I don't know. Where are we at with the Jets after great week 1, horrific week 2 against your Bills? So I'm sure this is a game you watch closely.
Yeah, I also feel like guys in the concussion protocol, yes, a lot of them do miss at least one game, but sometimes they get cleared and sometimes they play, especially when it's a very important player. So I'm not going to rule him out just yet. And also, Tyrod Taylor's like a pretty good backup. Now, Tyrod Taylor does have like this history in recent years of when he does get his number called because the starter gets hurt, he comes in and then he kind of weirdly gets hurt either in that game or shortly after. So let's hope that doesn't happen if he does have to get out there. But when he's out there, he's not bad at all. I mean, you look at what he did in this game, right? He throws a touchdown, he runs for 21 yards. Even he could be like a fantasy option potentially in deeper leagues and super flex leagues, that sort of thing. And he can keep this offense moving because really there's only a couple guys we're looking at. We're looking at Garrett Wilson. We're looking at Breece Hall. You're not playing anybody else in this offense. So yeah, I'm not that worried about this one. It's like you said, can't really go much lower after that Bills game. It was kind of a complete annihilation there. So let's hope for better days. Let's hope for better health for Fields. Let's get him back out there. Hopefully we can see something a little closer to what we saw in week 1, but I'm going to chalk up that week 2 performance to going up against a contending team. The Bills, they just have their number. They're the best team in the division. So I'm not really going to beat them up too much about it. The reality probably lies somewhere in between what we saw in week 1, that revenge fueled game in week 1 where they were giving it their all, and going up against the Bills. I'm not going to write them off after one bad performance because we saw what they're capable of in the opener. So whether he's out there or not this week, I'm still going to be more than fine playing Breece Hall and playing Garrett Wilson in this game. And Tyrod Taylor, like I said, in Superflex leagues, if he's going to get the start, go pick him up, get him in your lineup if you need somebody.
Yeah. Man, Tyrod Taylor's been in the league for a long time. I'm sure he's not as fast as he used to be, so I'm not totally banking on the rushing floor with Tyrod Taylor, but they do play the Bucs in week 3, so there's going to get this is a great tweet we have right now. Yeah, Superflex League's not exactly as fun as it seems right now when we're like, all right, do we start Carson Wentz or Tyrod Taylor in my QB2 spot? But no, I think that playing the Bucs in week 3, it's definitely a gettable matchup. And, from a process standpoint, I'm glad that you're kind of coming down a little bit more sober than I am on the Jets week 2 reaction. I think I was just so hyped up on what I saw in week 1 that week 2 was such a letdown. But those days are going to happen with Fields, especially against, like you mentioned, the Bills defense has problems, but they are well coached on the back end. Sean McDermott has those guys. Bobby Bowich consistently disciplined back there. You still saw all the fun, like pre-snap eye candy, guys motioning at the snap, and all of the things that should create favorable opportunities for a guy like Garrett Wilson going against a Bucs secondary that is beatable in week 3. So definitely not a ton of panic for this one. And I've always been a long time Tyrod Taylor fan. So I anytime we can see him take a couple snaps, I'm down for it.
I will add too, like the matchup with the Bucs, not a bad one by any means. The Dolphins in week 4, we've seen what teams have done against them. The Cowboys in week 5, you could definitely put up some points on them. The Panthers in week 7, the Bengals in week 8.
Baby.
Like the schedule here for the Jets is not bad. So yeah, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, I think they're going to be just fine. And when Justin Fields is healthy, he'll be just fine as well as that like low end QB1. The ceiling was there in week 1. That was probably the best game we're going to see from him all season. So let's not expect top 5 performances every week from him. But what we thought before the year, right? He can be that solid QB1 with the odd spike week, with the very high floor. I think he'll be okay.
God, man, I'm having such like a snip, snap relationship with the New York Jets. I was really intrigued going into the training camp, all the way out after the training camp reports, all the way back in after what we saw in week 1, all the way back out in week 2. And now Boone's like, check out the schedule. See, they got some good upcoming matchups. I just want good things for Garrett Wilson. I just want good things for Garrett Wilson. That's all I can say. Not good things happening with the Washington Commanders right now. Jayden Daniels has a knee injury. He is TBD on playing in week 3 against the Las Vegas Raiders. He underwent an MRI after the loss to the Packers. It looked like he had like a sprained knee situation going on. So there's at least a chance he does not play here in week 3. I would start preparing as if he's not going to play in week 3. And I don't know, Boone, this one, I don't know what to say about Washington because they're coming off such a disaster performance against the Green Bay Packers. But I think the Green Bay Packers are going to do that to a lot of people. But Tell me what's good about this offense besides Jayden Daniels right now.
Well, I think the big thing for me here is that we've seen Marcus Mariota come in for him before. And Marcus Mariota played pretty good in this offense when he's come in before, right? Like he can do a lot of similar things to Jayden Daniels. And it was a small sample size last year. I mean, a week 7 was a good matchup too, going against the Panthers, but he threw for 205 yards.
Do you remember who he played? Do you remember who
it was? The Panthers, 205 yards, 2 scores, ran it 11 times for 34 yards. And that was just on 86% of the snaps. So if he had played the full game, might even been a little bit better there. Week 18, again, going against the Cowboys. So another decent matchup, but he only played 55% of the snaps in that game. 161 yards, 2 scores, ran for 56 yards and a touchdown. So he can do, it's not going to be the same. The ceiling is not the same, but my level of panic here is basically no panic unless we find out that this injury is going to be a multi-week thing. If it's just going to be him missing 1 week, I think Mariota can come in, fill in, and be just fine. They're not going to go against that Packers defense. Look at what that I am so scared of that Packers defense right now. Like I am looking at them on the schedule and I'm going to bump everybody there up against down. Like there is just no way. That defense is so good. You have to adjust your priors on that. We knew they'd be like an okay defense. We did not know that they were going to be this level of shutdown defense. So that's why I'm kind of giving the Commanders a bit of a pass in that game. And yeah, I think Mariota's going to do a decent job as the replacement quarterback there if he has to go this week and if he has to go for a couple games. If we get into like 3 games or more that Daniels has to miss with a knee sprain, then absolutely we're going to have some panic here. But for a very short stint, Mariota can step in, can do a lot of the same stuff. They'll lean on the run game a little more. We'll get to see Bill Krosky-Merritt do some stuff, hopefully. Let's see it. Let's unleash him a little bit, right? Like that last game, it made no sense to me the way they used him there. Now Austin Eckler's out for the year. You have no choice. You got to go to Bill. Let's see what he can do. And yeah, the matchups are going to get better for them. So yeah, I really don't have any panic here at all.
I think maybe, I don't know. I'm kind of a little closer to some panic, although the fact that it's the Raiders, hey, revenge game for Marcus Mariota. He used to play for the Raiders. I don't know. He actually had a couple of good moments with the Las Vegas Raiders, or maybe they were the Oakland Raiders back then. I'm a little bit closer to some panic on this team, but the fact that it is the Raiders does at least give me some, kind of sigh of relief for the passing game players. That being said, right now, Boone, I'm just not jacked up to play anybody in this offense right now. I think Terry McLaurin is predictably starting slow right now, coming off of the contract holdout. He could get it going at any time, and maybe it's this week, but I'm going to feel a little bit less optimistic about that with Mariota under center, just because it's not Jayden Daniels. Jayden Daniels is truly that good. Debo, 0.6 air yards per target last week. I know he scored the one touchdown late in the game, and he's still, I think, a viable wide receiver 3 type player. I don't think he's bad or anything. He's had a pretty nice run out for the Washington Commanders, but they just really lack juice right now. Just really not a lot of excitement going on. They're throwing to Noah Brown and putting a serious face on about it. Don't love that. And you're talking about, it's time to unleash Bill Krosky. It's this guy's a 7th round rookie running back. This is what we're unleashing. This is our secret weapon. I don't know. Maybe I'm overreacting. You can tell me I'm overreacting to what we saw in week 2 with the Packers, but my worst fear about this team was that they just don't have enough pop at the skill position players to win against good teams and to be the type of offense that they were last year when they kind of took the league by surprise. Again, great defense in week 2, terrible defense from a secondary perspective in week 3 against the Raiders. So maybe they can rebound there, but coming off a game where I kind of saw my worst fears, I'm a little skeptical.
I'm just giving so much respect to that Packers defense. And if you're looking for juice,
totally fair.
Let's get JCM the ball. Let's see what he can do. We know he can break these long runs. We know he can be explosive, the most explosive back they have on their team. So let's get him more involved. I don't know why he took such a step back usage-wise in week 2, but now they have no choice. And just looking at guys specifically, I'm with you that I think Debo is a high-end wide receiver 3 based on the way they're using him right now with that wide receiver 2 upside. And I feel a little bit better about him at the moment just because they are going to scheme him some things. Whereas Terry McLaurin, wide receiver 3, even almost wide receiver 3 flex range until we see him do something. And it's kind of predictable, I guess, because, these guys that have the holdouts or the hold-ins or whatever it ends up being, the contract disputes before the season, they tend to start pretty slow, and we're seeing that from him right now, and he's not going to have his top quarterback out there, it seems like. So, he gets bumped down a bit. The other guy that we're not even mentioning who's doing pretty well right now is Zach Ertz. Keep scoring these touchdowns, getting a ton of volume. I know it seems strange. Last week, I had him as my number 2 ad in the Waiver Wire article at tight end, and he comes through again. I think he's somebody that people should be looking at. Another name in that low-end tight end 1, high-end tight end 2 range. Guys you could look at if there's an injury, if you're unhappy with, your starter so far, you could look at him and throw him out there, and he's an okay play. You hope that he finds the end zone, but in that range, there are a lot of tight ends right now that are going to be volatile, that are going to put up somewhere between, 30 and 60 yards. Hopefully they find the end zone, and he's right in the mix with all of them.
What has not been an okay start so far is the Minnesota Vikings offense. J.J. McCarthy is going to be out for the next 2 to 4 weeks with a very real ankle sprain. This is the most real ankle sprain that's ever occurred. Carson Wentz is going to step in as the starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. They will also be without Aaron Jones this week, who has a hamstring injury. So it is the full Jordan Mason show. Boone, this is your guy, J.J. McCarthy, now dealing with another injury setback. On a serious note, high ankle sprain. I think you could see the play late in the game where it actually did happen, and he played the rest of the game through it. But just brutal setback for a guy who obviously needs the reps, as we've seen so far.
Yeah, just what a roller coaster ride so far with him, like you're mentioning. And I know I set the expectations way too high with that bold prediction before the season. He comes out, he plays 3 of the worst, quarters of quarterback play that we have seen. and then kind of salvages it with that fourth quarter. You hope that that was going to be the building block for week 2, but that Falcons defense, they showed up, and he did not have a good game in week 2. And now he comes away with the injury as well. And like you alluded to, like, yes, he got hurt. He's not faking the injury or anything, but is the team also not just going to take this opportunity to be like, you know what, sit down, catch your breath. We've seen other teams do it. We saw Dave Canales do it with Bryce Young last year, right? Like, sit down. True. You're not playing well at the moment. Figure things out. Get comfortable, and then we'll get you back out there when you're healthy and when you kind of have your head on straight again. And Carson Wentz, that's why they brought him in, right? Like a competent backup quarterback. And I hate to go back to it, but like, we've seen other journeyman quarterbacks come into this offense and get things going. I also really think that, you know, the offensive line issues they've had so far, they haven't had Christian Darrisaw yet. Hopefully he comes back soon. Ryan Kelly left. I believe he's in concussion protocol right now. So one of the things that we were looking at was that they were revamping this offensive line. They addressed a ton of things on it. You were going to have this really strong front. And so far, they haven't been out there together yet, right? So hopefully at some point soon, we're going to get that. We're going to get Jordan Addison back as well, which is going to be huge. So moving forward, I still think this thing is going to get figured out. And I think the Vikings offense is going to be one that you want to invest in. But at the moment, Carson Wentz out there, you know, Justin Jefferson takes a hit here. Justin Jefferson, he'll get a ton of volume. It's a little bit like the Jamar Chase situation. He's going to get a lot of volume, but I think you got to bump Jefferson down now to like the low end wide receiver 1 range, just based on the way this offense has looked. And now we have another quarterback switch going on here. TJ Hawkinson is a guy that I think you could probably send to your bench at this point until we see something change. You really hope that early in the season, without Addison out there, he was going to be able to put up some good numbers, and it's not happening for him based on the way this offense looks right now. So some of those, you know, tight ends that we've talked about on the waiver wire that we'll talk about later today, some of those guys you could actually play over Hawkinson. I wouldn't drop Hawkinson, but I would send him to my bench. I wouldn't want to have to start him at the moment. And then, I'm not really looking at anybody else in the pass catching core, but in the backfield, we've got another injury, right? Aaron Jones with the hamstring. Sounds like he's probably going to miss this game. So now you have Jordan Mason, who's someone I really like, who we got for this exact reason, right? Aaron Jones, an older running back, a guy who had these soft tissue injuries, and now he's going to miss time. So Jordan Mason, to me, they're going to have to lean on him, I think, with Carson Wentz out there. And I really like what he's done so far. I'd like to see him get more touches, and he's going to get that opportunity now. So I think Jordan Mason, weirdly, is a guy that might actually benefit from this. It's like reverse panic meter for him. But for the rest of that offense, you know, I'm not panicking long-term. I think the short term, it's unfortunate for a guy like Hawkinson, but long-term, I don't have much panic. I think Kevin O'Connell is going to get this figured out. And maybe that's just my foolish, you know, blind faith in Kevin O'Connell. But there's so much talent here. When everybody gets healthy, when everybody gets back, I think this offense will be fine in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you're talking about like docking Justin Jefferson to low-end wide receiver 1 zone. You're probably doing that already. Like, that's the thing. This J.J. McCarthy injury doesn't really – it causes me no panic because I was already maybe even prepared to make more serious adjustments if it was J.J. McCarthy, you know, playing like how he's been playing in the first 2 weeks of the season than it is with Carson Wentz. Look, I have no idea what we're going to get out of Wentz, okay? Obviously, no clue. But for these other players, I mean – definitely the offensive line is the thing that's got to get right. The whole thesis of this offense was the offensive line was going to be better. They were going to be able to run the ball better because of it. They're 28th in yards before contact on their running back runs this year. That hasn't quite materialized just yet, but I think Jordan Mason, week 3 against the Cincinnati Bengals, we're probably going to be firing him up as a start, especially if Carson Wentz is he's under center and he's playing well, which I think he'll play all right in this situation. So yeah, to me, it is no panic. The only guy that's the biggest question mark is TJ Hawkinson, and you just got to find a replacement for that guy. Like, he was kind of a super, super low ceiling draft pick anyways. And it's like, maybe in the first 2 weeks of the season, he could get off to a hot start. He's been nothing. Adam Thielen's been nothing. We'll see if any of these guys actually can do something with Carson Wentz under center. Carson Wentz throwing passes to Justin Jefferson was absolutely not on my wish list for the 2025 NFL season, but that is what we have gotten here because we just have all these mountain of quarterback injuries to talk through. We are going to try to recover from all that. We're going to take our first quick break. We come back, we'll get into your email submissions to the People's Panic Meter right after this. All right, we are back. It is time to get into your submissions to the People's Panic Meter. Not everybody is going to be featured here this week just because, one, we had all the quarterback stuff to talk about at the top, but also a lot of people sent in the same names over and over again, Boone. So we tried to hit some that could just be a little bit more all-encompassing. I would say that our most popular submission, both email and social media, was one of the players we're going to talk about in this tweet from this email from TT here. Not going to read all of it, but long and short of it. Hey guys, big fan of the pod here. My panic topic of concern is regard to two supposed to be great wide receiver duos, Brian Thomas Jr. / Travis Hunter and AJ Brown and Devonta Smith. For the Jags, through 2 weeks, they've been leading the team in targets, but are being outproduced by guys like De'Ami Brown and Brenton Strange. Is this more of an issue adapting to Liam Cohen's offense or having chemistry issues with Trevor Lawrence? Brian Thomas Jr. seemed to have his best games toward the end of the season, but it was supposed to have this monster year. Travis Hunter, he's getting targets but not doing much with them. Seems to be getting a small scale underneath stuff after being touted as generational talent. For the Eagles, is this a result of a tough schedule to start the year, et cetera, et cetera? So again, won't read the whole email there because there's a lot, but we got two wide receiver duos to talk about here, Boone. I actually want to start with the Eagles wide receiver duo here because I think it's a much more simple, cut and dry situation here. I think you're maybe more optimistic than me based on the submission here. Talk me off why I shouldn't be totally panicking about these wide receivers because, like, these games are going to happen, right, Boone? Like, where they're winning and they just sit on the ball and they don't have to push it to either of these two guys on the outside. Like, tell me why I shouldn't be panicking here.
I mean, I wanted to hear, it's like the hurry up offense segment that we do. I almost want to throw the flag and hear your side of it first because you're the one that's like going total panic on it. I don't feel like I should be the one talking you down right away, but we know it's a concentrated attack. We know how talented these guys are. I think we could chalk it up to a strange week one where even though he's denying it, where AJ Brown's coming off that injury in the preseason, that he enters the season, he's not quite 100%. And then they have a tough matchup against the Chiefs. And yeah, we looked at that game and we said the Chiefs offense is in a rough spot and the Eagles are going to come away with it. But going to KC to play that defense, it's not the best matchup by any means. And I think what's happening right now is people are looking at this offense and they're comparing it to 2023, right? When they changed coordinators and when things kind of went downhill. You and I did an episode, it was my very first episode on this show, where we were talking through the Eagles offense and, could it be a scenario where they actually do take a step back? Are people kind of, overrating them, that sort of thing? And back then I mentioned that even though people look back at that season and they think about the struggles the offense had, they actually were producing okay for fantasy. Like Jalen Hurts was still doing his own thing. He was fine fantasy-wise, right up at the top there. And you look at the receivers who we're talking about right now. I mean, AJ Brown was 11th in fantasy points per game that year. Devonta Smith, 21st. And you look at it, and Brown actually had a very slow start to that season as well. Now, it wasn't quite as slow as this. It wasn't one catch in the opener. It wasn't under 30 yards in the second game. It was 79 yards in week one. It was under 30 yards in the second game, actually, but it was a little bit better than what he had this week. And then guess what happened? He rattles off 6 straight games with over 120 receiving yards. So that's the kind of player we're talking about. I don't think he's fallen off a cliff. The one area that I'm sure you're going to focus on, and this is where the problem lies, and this is why I have some panic, is the volume. They're not passing the ball as much. And that's where the concern for me really stems from, is if that continues. And over the course of a season, you look back at what Jalen Hurts has done in previous years, he has games where they don't need to, like you alluded to at the top there, right? They're going to have games where they're winning. They're controlling things on the ground. The defense is playing well. They don't have to chuck it all over the yard. I'm going to guess that this just happened at the beginning of the season for them. And it's 2 games, and one was a tough matchup. And that's why the numbers don't look great. There are going to be games where they're pushed more. There are going to be games where they have to put it in the air. And I'm having some faith that in this attack where we have 4 pieces that are just so strong. These are great fantasy producers year over year. It's not just 1 year they've done it. It is several years these guys have produced, that they're going to figure it out. They're going to get it right. But tell me why you are like completely freaking out here. There must be more to it than just the volume stuff.
I mean, it's mostly the volume stuff, and it's just like I agree with you that in 2023, it really Well, obviously, you're right. From a fantasy perspective, it ended up actually working out for a lot of those guys, even if it was not good from an NFL perspective. And they clearly took a step back. I think this offense just doesn't look as put together. They're using motion a lot less. They're using more like tight ends and kind of these heavier personnel packages. It just seems like they're leaning more into like we want to run the ball with Saquon Barkley. And that's the thing. In 2023, they did not have Saquon Barkley. They did not have like this is our son, we orbit around this guy. Like this is our franchise defining figure in Saquon Barkley behind a great defense. That's another thing. Like the 2023 season was a disappointment because the defense fell apart. This year, I think some of the offensive ceiling has been shaved off because Kellen Moore is not like a top 5 play caller, but I think he's a pretty good play caller. And he's bringing all of those like fun bells and whistles to a Saints team that's not talented at all. Spencer Rattler leads all quarterbacks in dropbacks with motion so far this year, according to Fantasy Points data. Like and that's right, baby. I got my Saints reference in on the podcast, even when nobody's panicking about the Saints because they're the best bad offense in fantasy football right now. I don't know what it is about that team, but anyways, God, now that's producer Colin's fault. Made me lose my train of thought. Got me tilted about the Saints. But I think the thing here is just like we're seeing less of like the fun play calling stuff. We're seeing them lean more into the run game. We're seeing them lean more into the defense, and I just see that happening more and more this year. To that, yes, I would bet my mortgage that like AJ Brown's going to have an eruption game. Devonta Smith's going to have an eruption game. When is it going to be? Like, how many of these 2 for whatever type games do you have to suffer through to get to the end of season final result? And is that even going to be like AJ Brown? How many of these weeks can he stack and still be like a wide receiver 1 in fantasy football? Like at this point, I'm just concerned, and I hope I'm wrong because I love AJ Brown and Devonta Smith for that matter. Devonta Smith now the leading wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles, not Jahan Dotson. So that's an upset for me, obviously. But like, how many of these games do they suffer through and not meet like ADP expectations? I hope I'm overreacting to all this, but that's kind of my thoughts.
I just think in this offense, like with that amount of talent, I can't put them down this quickly. I can't say that there's no way they're going to come back from this. I mean, they have a matchup with the Bucs in 2 weeks, right? You don't think they're going to be able to throw on the Bucs? Like, and that's an offense that might actually be able to put up some points on them, and then we'll see what happens there, right? I think, who is it, the Rams this week, I think they play? So, like, again, another offense that I think is going to be able to potentially move the ball against them. We saw it in the playoffs last year, right? Like, so I think there's going to be situations where they're going to be pushed more. And can we not chalk this up a little bit to the fact that it is a new coordinator? They're trying to figure things out on the fly here. Like, think about the Chargers last year, right? They came out,
sure.
They ran the ball so early, right? And everybody's like, oh my God, they're a run team, they're a run team, they're a run team. And then as soon as Justin Herbert was healthy, all of a sudden after their bye, boom, they come out and they start throwing the ball and they completely flip the script on what everyone expected from them based on what the coordinator had done for his entire career, right? So I think the Eagles will be okay. I guess I'm not as worried as you. There's some panic. It's not total panic for me.
Well, let me just say, I hope you are right, and I hope I am wrong in this scenario. One thing I have been wrong about so far is that the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to be this fun, exciting offense. Let's talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars wide receiver duo, Boone. And this one, to me, is a much more complicated question than the group that we just talked about, because for the Eagles wide receiver duo, and I'll just lead this one off here and give you kind of my thoughts on BTJs in particular. Hunter, I don't really know what to say too much of. Like, it was kind of a bad break last game because a cornerback got injured midweek or mid-game. And the usage for him hasn't been great. I think they're trying to get him going with some design stuff, but it's just the whole offense feels off. They had 5 illegal shift penalties in week 2. 5. Like, they don't even know how to get lined up properly and like execute all these like pre-snap and at-snap motion stuff. Either Trevor Lawrence's timing is off, the receivers don't totally know what they need to do, or, again, the whole infrastructure is just feeling a little weird. But with BTJ in particular, I mean, that was I charted that game and rewatched it. It's as bad as, like, the box score indicates. Sometimes it's like, okay, well, quarterback let him down, whatever. Like, no, he played poorly. And this whole idea that people are like, oh, Trevor Lawrence is throwing him hospital balls. Guys, if we're going to be a starting NFL receiver, we're going to be a wide receiver 1. We're going to be a wide receiver in this offense. This offense, which asks you to does all that pre-snap stuff to weaponize over the middle plays, like we gotta be going over the middle. No, like hospital ball, none of that stuff. Like you gotta go over you gotta sit in zone coverage and take a lick. And my biggest problem with all this, Boone, is that if I was to critique one thing about Brian Thomas Jr.'s great rookie season, it's that he struggled against zone coverage. 38th percentile success rate versus zone and reception perception. Didn't know how to settle down all the way. His success rate on slants was very low. The connection between these two, and Trevor Lawrence is absolutely at fault for some of this. I'm not letting Trevor off the hook at all, and I'm not even like a Trevor Lawrence defender or any of that stuff. But that, again, makes me almost more concerned, is that it's not just a Trevor Lawrence issue. It's not just a BTJ issue. It's not just the Jags offense isn't totally firing. It's all of these things, which I don't know. To me, that I'm saying some panic, but I feel like I'm seeming a little more nervous than that.
I'm right there with you. I'm some panic, but bordering on total panic for these players in particular, right? And you hit on like the vibes of the team, and I don't want to be like a vibes guy, but the vibes of the team are just so concerning, right? Like you look at this right now, and it's a strange situation where we have Brian Thomas Jr. looks like he's unhappy out there. He doesn't really look like himself. And producer Colin threw up the tweet earlier, and there's also a great video out there if people want to find it of Brian Thomas Jr. of Liam Cohen talking about Brian Thomas Jr. And Liam Cohen admits that he had this wrist injury last week going into the game. And all of a sudden, one of the reporters goes, "Oh, why wasn't he on the injury report?"
Yeah.
And immediately Liam Cohen starts to go like, "Oh, well, it was just like,
when did that happen?" Well,
trying to talk it down, right? So maybe the wrist injury is the reason for it. I hope. I don't know why. But then you also have like Liam Cohen, and we talk about all these different offenses with new coordinators and new coaches, and maybe they'll figure it out over time. And this is one of them. But Liam Cohen screaming at Trevor Lawrence on the field, and Trevor Lawrence just kind of waving him off and turning back to those aren't great things to see. I don't want to see that kind of vibe with the offense when you're trying to figure things out on the fly here. So all of that to me is very, very concerning. On top of the fact that you talked about BTJ with Travis Hunter, so explosive, this incredible athlete, and yet the way they're using him on all these short passes, he's getting the volume. He's gotten 14 targets in the first 2 weeks, and yet it's all this short stuff. They haven't been able to catch him long at all. It just seems so strange to me. And maybe we could chalk up this week to the idea, like you said, there's injuries on defense. He had to play a little more on defense. Apparently they planned to play him more on defense going into the game. Maybe that took away from the offensive snaps a little bit, but it just doesn't seem like they've figured out how to get these guys the ball, how to scheme these guys the ball, and really how to get this passing attack moving in the right direction with everyone together. Will they figure it out? I hope so, but it's looked really, really bad so far. And yeah, it leads to some panic, and I don't think we would have been wrong if we went total panic here by any means.
Yeah, so far, just 6.3 air yards per target for Travis Hunter. I think he's a guy that you just don't quite know. By the way, both these guys have 2 drops so far. There's just been issues there. So it's just one of those, if you're a Trevor Lawrence defender, which I'm not generally, I'm kind of just mixed on Trevor. There's something you could find, especially in last week's game, where you're see, look at that throw. The wide receiver's got to catch that pass. But at the same time, there's so many, he's late on throws, which makes it a more difficult play than it should have been, which I think causes Brian Thomas Jr. to hold up. And then there's, again, the wide receivers dropping passes. De'Ami Brown put a pass on the turf that could have been a touchdown in this game. It's just, I will say, I mentioned the illegal shift penalties, 5 in that game, which is just crazy, absolutely bizarre stuff. The Ben Johnson Bears lead the league in false starts so far. This is what we talk about in the offseason, where sometimes these fun offenses with all these cool little bells and whistles, the pre-snap eye candy, it's going to take a minute for all the players to get it figured out. I mean, Darnell Wright is the one returning Chicago Bears offensive lineman who was locked into his starting spot because Braxton Jones was battling out at left tackle. And you just he's the guy who's committing all the false starts. He's the one returning guy they had. And it's all right, he's locked in he just can't stop false starting because it's a lot of different stuff going on pre-snap than there was before. So with all of these offensive units, I do think we kind of got to give it a beat and like, let's talk about it in October and November if these issues are still happening. But I don't want to come out of this and just say like, well, we got to let BTJ off the hook because Trevor Lawrence stinks or whatever. Like, no, he absolutely had a horrible game in week 2. And like, I got to wonder about like what's going on upstairs. Like, is he thinking about these hits? He took a big hit in preseason. I remember at the Expo where he got clocked, against the Steelers. And it was like, ooh, hope we don't see that happen in the regular season. And then like, it feels like he's hoping it doesn't happen in the regular season. So I don't know, just a lot of stuff going on here. I don't know what the fantasy advice is to take away from this, Boone. Like, you're not going to bench. I don't think you're going to bench BTJ. I don't think you can do that. He has a 12 target game. Like, you're hoping that recorrects itself. Like, Travis Hunter always was kind of like on the wide receiver 3 radar. So if you got a better option, sure, throw him out there and see when that usage sort of kind of crystallizes. Maybe he's a back. All these rookies can always be back half of the season players, Boone. But for BTJ, it's like, what do you tell people to do? Like, you're probably just going to keep playing him and like fingers crossed, right? Or is there something else?
It's hard to imagine you'd have better options to sit him, but he does fall down more into the wide receiver 2 range for sure. And you have to factor in too, there's just a lot more target competition, right? Like the person who wrote in said, there's all these other guys there. Before it was a little bit his show. Now on top of Hunter, it is Dammy Brown. Parker Washington is stepping up and doing some things this year. Brenton Strange, the rushing attack. Like, there are a lot of guys involved in the offense now on top of trying to figure it out as they go. So for him, yeah, you're probably still playing him. I can't imagine your receiving core is so good that you can bench BTJ. But Hunter, I would be looking to bench him. I don't think you can play him until we see something change. The volume has been there, like I said, but the production, not having 35 receiving yards in either of these 2 games with the volume that he's been getting, you can't have him in your lineup until we see something change.
Next one that we're going to talk through here comes from Anthony N. We've got a 2-for-1 special here. Drake London and Mark Andrews are players Anthony is panicking about. I don't know where last year's London-Penix connection went, nor do I understand what's happening with Andrews. Is he droppable now? Let's take the easy one first, which I think is Drake London. I don't know, Boone. I have no panic about Drake London.
No panic. None. Don't even know that we need to discuss it that much. No panic. He got hurt, right? Like, I think he'll be fine. It was a tough matchup last week coming back from the injury. I think he's still the player that we thought he was before the season, and everything will be fine there.
Me too. Like, let's talk. If this is still the case in week 3, week 4, I don't know. I mean, he started slow last year, ended up finishing the year top 5 in receiving yards. Like, where's the London to Penix connection? He had like 15 targets in week 1. He just didn't have a lot of production with it, but I think that's just variance. There's nothing going on there. Like, the role's not different. But yeah, coming into last week banged up against Minnesota Vikings defense. No panic on Drake London. I'm sure people want us to talk about it more, but there's just not that much to say. Like, there's not some kind of trapdoor that Drake London's fallen through. It's just a tough matchup against Brian Flores' defense. Stuff happens. With Mark Andrews, though, kind of think he's fallen a little bit through a trapdoor here, Boone, for a couple different reasons. That one, like, let's not forget that this team was probably okay if Mark Andrews wasn't on the roster this year. There were times where they were shopping him in the offseason. They wanted to pay Isiah Likely before his injury. And they've got a lot of receivers that they can throw at you, like Devonta's Walker popping up for a couple touchdowns. Zay Flowers has absolutely made the year 3 leap. He's balling out. Rashad Bateman's still there. DeAndre Hopkins is catching passes down the football field. Like, this isn't just the Mark Andrews show at all. And I definitely, I'm in total panic if I don't have any Mark Andrews teams, but if I did, I'd be in total panic about it. And I would be looking for like a different person to play at tight end at this point. Do you feel any differently?
No, it's a total panic for sure. And, you could look to the idea that, I think I said this on one of the shows before, that he started slow last year and then all of a sudden he came on, he ended up scoring like 11 touchdowns on the year after a quiet start to the season. But last year he came in with some injuries. This year he came in with no Isiah Likely out there, and he still has 1 catch in each game. You hit it. There's so much more target competition there. But also when you think back to like before the season, and the way the coaching staff was talking about Isiah Likely, like I keep remembering that Harbaugh quote when they asked him, what are your expectations for Likely? And he said something along the lines of like, I hope he becomes an all-pro. And maybe I didn't see the actual video. I only read the quote. So I don't know if it was like semi-joking the way he said that, but I know they think very highly of Likely. When he's gotten opportunities, he's been very, very good. And you wonder, was this going to be the year? Because in the offseason, there were a lot of rumors that maybe Mark Andrews wouldn't come back. Do you think this could be the year where Likely is going to be that guy? And I don't want to spoil the waiver wire section we're going to talk about at the end of the show, But I think if you can go out right now and get Isaiah Likely and stash him on your bench, there's a chance when he comes back here, I think it is a very good chance that he is going to take over that tight end room and be the starting tight end as the year goes along and be a pretty good fantasy asset as well. Because I think at this stage of their careers, he'd be doing a lot more with the opportunity than what we're seeing from Mark Andrews right now. So it's unfortunate, and it's weird to say because I said before the season, like, Mark Andrews is not that old. He's not 35, 36 years old. I believe he's 29. He's going to turn 30. He's not that old at all. And yet it seems like he is just kind of falling out of favor in this offense. They're looking to the other guys. And I do think when Likely comes back, he is going to end up usurping him there as well. So go and get Likely if you can. And yes, Andrews goes to your bench. I wouldn't necessarily drop him just because of what we saw happen last year, but I would send him to the bench. I would play one of these waiver wire pickups and I would give it another week or two. And then maybe at that point, if he doesn't get going, then you drop him.
I think I'm going to skip this Cardinals one that we have next. There was some concern about like James Conner and some of the usage with Trey Benson. Actually, just real quick, do you have any panic about James Conner or anything with the Cardinals here? I just want to make sure we get to this TreVeyon Henderson question before the break.
I don't have any panic about Conner, but it does seem like the writing is on the wall for Trey Benson to take over that job at some point. I still think it's going to require a Conner injury for that to happen, though. So it just depends what your expectations were before the season. If you really thought that Conner was going to come in and be an RB1 for you, I don't know that he's that guy anymore, but he's still a very solid RB2 in lineups. And Benson now has some flex value as well, which is great.
Yeah, to the point, the email we got from Adam, which was great. It is just the Cardinals are 2-0. It's very volatile, but that is what the Cardinals, like, I expected coming into the year. So for me, this is kind of what I thought we'd get. So I'm not too freaked out about it, but it is at least worth noting that I think we've seen like kind of the worst of some of the Cardinals stuff so far this year. But it's only been 2 games. Maybe it can smooth out over the rest of the year. The one I want to make sure we get to here is from Jose R, because this is a player we have to talk about. All we kept hearing and reading in the offseason was how great TreVeyon Henderson was. ADP rose like foam on a poorly poured beer. After 2 weeks, usage has been bad. Is he the real deal, or are we victims of some sort of rookie scam? Feels like almost the same way with Travis Hunter. How bad is it? Great show, and thanks for the good work. I appreciate you saying it was a great show, even if we did talk a lot about TreVeyon Henderson this offseason. Boone, I think you were a bigger TreVeyon Henderson guy than I was, but at the same time, we did talk about this. When we did the what if the rookie running back class disappoints, we did say that this was the guy that was going to have the most trouble like getting on the field early for his team because Ramondre Stevenson exists. And it has to be mega tilting for TreVeyon Henderson fantasy managers, seeing that I think Mike Vrabel said today that the play that Ramondre Stevenson caught down the football field and that 50-plus yard banger was supposed to go to TreVeyon Henderson. So that's definitely a good feeling. If your hypothetical fantasy points are really crushing it for the TreVeyon Henderson bros out there. But what's the state of the state for the Patriots running back 3 right now? Because Antonio Gibson's in the mix.
Oh, it's total panic. It is total panic. And it's not about the player at all. I still think he is the same guy that we expected him to be. It's the opportunity. It's the coaching staff. What are they doing? Why did they reduce his playing time last week? Why did they turn this into a 3-man backfield? Why did they reduce his touches from 11 in week 1 to 5 last week? Antonio Gibson got more touches in that game than TreVeyon Henderson. Why would you draft a guy as early as they did and not try to work him into the offense more and actually work in a guy that, I mean, I know it's a new coaching staff, but I thought Gibson's time there was like over. Like he had shown what he was going to show. He was not going to get another opportunity. He was just depth. And now all of a sudden we have this 3-man committee. And I will say that is where I was totally wrong on this one. It's shout out Sigmund Bloom,
Same.
The assumption of rational coaching, right? We thought that, I said, Josh McDaniels, over the years, they've used multiple backs, but they drafted this guy. It's going to be 2 guys, but it's going to be Henderson just slowly taking over that job. And that's not what we're seeing. Maybe that will develop as the year goes along, but right now that is not what we're seeing. And I have no faith right now that the coaching staff is going to change this very, very quickly. I think it's going to be a long process. This might be like a, post-bye week rookie bump that happens for Henderson eventually. But right now, this is another guy that you have to send to your bench. until we see something change. You can't put him out there when this is a 3-man committee in an offense that had some success against the Dolphins, but overall this offense hasn't shown itself competent against quality defenses. So yeah, it is total panic for me, Harmon.
Yeah, that bye week for the post-bye rookie bump, week 14, New England Patriots bye week. So
so right for the fantasy playoffs. It's perfect.
Right in time for those season. How perfect is that? No, but I'm with you that the thing I got wrong about this backfield was that Antonio Gibson's involved. He's not involved a ton, but it's just enough to take away from Antonio or take away from TreVeyon Henderson. The one thing I will push back on what you said there and some of the narrative like in the fantasy community right now is like, what is this team doing not playing him? He and you mentioned this, like he's the guy that we thought he was. One thing about TreVeyon Henderson that was supposed to be like squeaky clean was his pass protection. He made several critical errors in pass protection on that game in week 2, and like you just can't be out there if you're going to get the second year quarterback, the face of the franchise, smoked, especially when that was supposed to be your selling point. So I'm not here to say that like, oh yeah, TreVeyon Henderson's going to be a bust. I would really try to hang on to him in the hope that he will ascend like in the second half of the season. Same thing with a guy like RJ Harvey, who's not playing nearly enough right now to be even close to fantasy consideration. You probably like right now you're feeling like, God, I drafted these guys way too high. But folks, it is a long football season. It is very conceivable that when we do the splits of like week 8 on fantasy points per game, RJ Harvey's up there. TreVeyon Henderson's is up there. Right now, it's not looking good, and I don't think that there are a lot of reasons for the coaching staff to, especially coming off a great offensive performance, where Ramondre Stevenson played well. Like I do think people like kind of piled dirt on Ramondre Stevenson maybe a little bit too early this offseason. Like sure. He is a guy who is a quality NFL back, and I thought would be in a committee with Henderson. I didn't think he'd be just like a cleared alpha dog back there, but there's every chance that over the course of the season, like again, TreVeyon Henderson ascends, establishes himself. I think it's clearly just going to take a little bit more time than we probably wanted it to in the offseason. So right now, you just got to be like, drafting TreVeyon Henderson is not going to ruin your fantasy football season, okay? Your whole team doesn't depend on TreVeyon Henderson. But if you were right on the talent evaluation, if you were right on the skills coming into the year, those will materialize at some point this year. And then hopefully you elevate him from your bench, you put him in the starting lineup for the boost in the second half of the season. Right now, you just got to be proactive and like try to find some different results. But yes, of course, bottom line, right now, if TreVeyon Henderson's on your team and you were counting on him as a starter, without question, you were totally panicking.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I think one of the things we should mention again here, and you kind of hit on it there, is that early in the season, when rookies don't perform the way we think, you see a lot of managers freak out. If they're later round rookies, people drop them. You can go pick them up and benefit when they do come on. And if they're early round guys, you'll have to trade for them, but maybe you can get a discount right now. So I still would be making moves to get a guy like Henderson, to get a guy like RJ Harvey, the guys who are behind these veterans right now. But as the season goes along, I think they're going to get their opportunities.
All right, we are going to take another quick break. When we come back, we'll get to your social submissions to the People's Panic Meter, rapid fire style, right after this. All right, it is time. We are back, ready to get to your social media submissions to the People's Panic Meter. First one in comes from Benjamin, who sends in this tweet: Isiah Pacheco, volume slashed and not looking efficient. Boone, I'm going to say it straight up here. This is my first coping corner candidate. Maybe you could talk me off the ledge, but I'm trying to send this dude to the damn coping corner here. And like, look, this has to be a joint decision. This is a democracy. This is not a dictatorship. We have to both agree to send somebody to the coping corner. It's a very serious thing. But he is splitting the touches with the ghost of Kareem Hunt. The run game stinks. The offense is unwatchable. Like, why should I be playing this guy in fantasy? I want to send him to the coping corner because I don't want to have to keep getting like, I'm panicked about Isiah Pacheco. Yeah, you should be panicked. Bad draft pick by you people out there.
So last week you talked me off the coping corner and got me back down to a total panic. So let's see if I can do the same. And I can't believe you're going to make me argue for Isiah Pacheco, but yes, it has been terrible. What was 7 for 28 in the opener, 11 for 29 this week. So bad.
Sick.
And you hit on it. Like, the thing we thought was going to change was we thought he was going to go back now healthy to the usage he had before the injury last year, which was the year before and early last season, playing over 60% of the snaps. He is not doing that. It is a complete committee with Kareem Hunt. It is a strange situation because I think it's very clear that Pacheco is the better back regardless. The reason that I think I wouldn't put him in the coping corner is, for as bad as things are in KC right now with that offense, don't you see a scenario down the road where it improves? Don't you see Xavier Worthy coming back healthy eventually? Don't you see Rashee Rice out there? Don't you see a little later in the season with some better matchups with those receivers on the offense? All of a sudden now they're scoring a little more. Like, they just went against the Eagles. Like, that's such a tough matchup. They had the Chargers in week 1. That's a tough front as well. Like, I look at this and I go, things are about as bad as they could possibly be for the Chiefs. We were joking before the show that Patrick Mahomes is their leading rusher right now, right? Like, that is basically their entire offense is him running around. So things are going to get better. The receivers are going to get healthier. Rashee Rice is going to come back. This is going to resemble more of the Chiefs offense that we expected it to be. And at that point, there will be more value for the running backs there. And I think Pacheco at that point could give you some value in fantasy. And that's why, for me, it's just a total panic. It's not a coping corner. I see a scenario where he actually does have value as the season goes along.
Probably like 95% of that argument did not move me whatsoever. But the one thing that you said that I think will keep him out of the coping corner for now is that you said the Xavier Worthy part of it. Like, let's see what the offense looks like when at least Xavier Worthy gets back. But I'm telling you, if Xavier Worthy's back there and he's looking near 100% and Pacheco's still splitting with Kareem Hunt, he's going to the coping corner and there's nothing you could do about it. Next one up here comes from
Giants. Before we get to the next one, Giants in week 3, Jags in week 5, Raiders in week 7. Maybe there's some spots in there where Pacheco could actually put up some points. Now we can move on.
Maybe he'll get to 50 yards. That would be awesome. Okay, Matthew B sends in this next tweet. Speaking of Matthew Golden, is bro cardio king. I've got some panic about Matthew Golden in the sense that, like, with the rotation that's in Green Bay right now, you just really can't play him. But I do want to keep him parked on my bench, especially now that Jayden Reed is not there. So for me, Boone, I do have some panic here. Like, I wish he was earning more playing time, and I thought, like, oh, Packers, you used a first-round pick on the receiver. We're not going to rotate him in and out like everybody else. It's exactly what they're doing so far. So it looks like I got that one wrong.
Another strange one where we heard so many positive things about him coming out of practices, coming out of the preseason, and yet weirdly, it's 2 catches in week 1. It's 2 carries in week 2, no catches. Just a very, very strange spot for him. But yes, with Reed's injury, you figure that at some point they have to start leaning on him a little more. So he's a park him on your bench, and then hopefully we'll see him do a little more as the season goes along.
Yeah, that's what the hope is. Really curious to see what his role looks like this week. But hey, these NFL teams don't think like scoring fantasy points. They think Matthew Golden's added some value to their offense, even if he is playing 60% of the snaps, and you just got to kind of live with that. Next one coming in here is Think and I don't even know what Think and Thin Avs fan. I don't know, whatever. Anyways, they send in DJ Moore. DJ, I need much more, maybe more because of his quarterback play, but just not much of an option to rely on. I got some total panic on old DJ Moore here, Justin Boone, because our guy Rome Odunze has fully broken out. He's the wide receiver 1. People want to see more of Luther Burden, which to me I think means less of DJ Moore. We'll see if that actually happens, but I don't know, just not a lot. Like, I think DJ will have some weeks, but in terms of predictability, those are definitely going down overall right now.
Yeah, I'm with you. It feels like he's just kind of entering a different phase in his career, right? Like, he's not that number 1 receiver. He's not the engine of the offense anymore. He's just a contributing player. Other guys are stepping up. And then on top of it all, Caleb Williams, they're still trying to figure things out, right? And if Caleb was operating at like peak efficiency, maybe he could be, propelling a few of these guys to fantasy success. But right now it's Rome Odunze. It's not much else in the passing game, and we'll see if that changes. But yeah, I'm with you. Total panic on DJ Moore. It's just not the same player.
2 things real quickly before we move on off of what you said there. One, like you mentioned, different phase of his career. This comment caught my attention in the offseason, kind of flew under the radar. Not even sure if I mentioned it on the show, which is crazy because I talk every damn day on the show. But he said something about like, yeah, I'm not really sure what my usage is going to be like because like it's just a different part of my career or whatever. So, he did say something like that this offseason. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. 2, He should probably just get traded back to Carolina. Like, they need to do something about the wide receiver 2 position. Like, maybe he should just go back to the Panthers, fixes something for everybody involved there. All right, last one here comes in from Bang Bang Bird Gang, sends in this tweet, ironically, about a San Francisco 49ers player, Ricky Pearsall. It feels like he can't earn targets despite missing Kittle and playing alongside a banged-up Johnson. I think you mean Jawan Jennings there. His numbers don't look as bad as they feel. Should I try to trade him before he turns in some duds? What does the film look like to you guys? Thanks. I'm confused on this Ricky Pearsall. Like, panicking about Ricky Pearsall? Like, he's had 100 yards in one game and like 50 yards in the next. Welcome to guys that you draft along like wide receiver 30 lines. I know he didn't get a bunch of targets. Jawan Jennings had the big game on a catch and run. But, like, to me, Ricky Pearsall has been fine, and there's every bit of – he's second. I think he's one of the top second-year receivers in yards per route run right now. Like, he's been efficient, even if he hasn't gotten a bunch of targets funneled his way. Like, I don't really see any concern about Pearsall, but do you disagree with me?
I don't see this as a film question. I see it as like a game theory question, right? Like it's a bigger deal to me now that Jennings is back, and eventually Ayuk's going to be back, and eventually Kittle's going to be back. And at that point, what is Ricky Pearsall's value for fantasy? Can he still keep doing this, or is he going to become way more volatile even than he is right now? I think that's the concern. So I think you hold on to him now. I don't have any panic at the moment. I think he's going to be fine for the next few weeks. But I think looking down the road to October and beyond, that's when you start to question it. So if you're a little bit worried, wait a couple weeks, enjoy what he's doing right now, and then trade him before those other guys come back. Because to me, that would be the only thing that would infringe on his production.
Yeah, he's been used in a lot of like vertical routes, like 16 air yards per target last week. I did think he'd maybe get some more like quick hitters. Maybe that changes over the course of the next few weeks. But yeah, film wise, he looks great. And I think he's been plenty productive for where you drafted him in fantasy so far. So no panic for me on Ricky Pearsall. We are going to take our last break. When we come back, we will sink our teeth into this week's waiver wire with a lot of really appealing options right after this. All right, we are back. It is time to break down the waiver wire here heading into week 3 of the NFL season. We have some really appealing options to talk through. So let's go position by position and then give a deep sleeper for the people later on down the road. Let's start at quarterback here, Boone. Run me through the options for this week.
So this one, it's going to feel boring to start with the same guy that I started with last week, but I don't think it's boring at all because when I recommended Daniel Jones last week, I was telling everyone, you're going to pick him up. We love what we saw in week 1. He's running the ball. He looked confident in that offense. And yet he's got to go against the Broncos in week 2. So don't play him this week, but then you'll have him for the rest of the season. Well, he comes out in week 2, has another great game, right? Like he put up good stats against the Broncos. He's still running the ball. He's still scoring rushing touchdowns. And that offense looks really, really good. So I am excited about Daniel Jones. Never thought I'd be saying that after week 2, but man, he's put up 300 passing yards on the Broncos. Man, I don't know. It feels wrong, I know, but heading into the Monday night doubleheader, he's the quarterback 7 on the week. He was the QB2 overall last week. Like, he is getting it done in a way that I think is going to put him in the low-end QB1 conversation for potentially the rest of the season. Don't you think? Am I crazy to think that Daniel Jones could do this again? Because remember, I mentioned this last week, he did this a few years ago with the Giants where he was a low-end QB1 in fantasy points per game.
And this offense does suit him really well. Like all of the RPOs, the quick decisions. I mean, I mentioned this with Chris Allen on the Sunday recap show. He fried the Broncos defense when they blitzed him. I mean, absolutely obliterated them. And that's a good defensive unit too, like a really good defensive unit. So I'm very impressed with what Daniel Jones is doing right now. And I think the biggest difference, Boone, in they're calling him Indiana Jones. In Indiana Jones's favor right now is that 2022 Giants season, there was not a lot of talent around him. Here in Indy, there's a lot of talent. Man, I mean, even think about just like Josh Downs popped back up for a pretty nice game against the Broncos. So like it's just like, oh, Michael Pittman doesn't pop up huge. Alec Pierce is like, oh, well, Josh Downs is involved. Tyler Warren's involved. And Jonathan Taylor is looking like an excellent pick in fantasy football leagues right now. So just so much going for the Indianapolis Colts. I agree with you. He's the clear cut. Like if you lost Joe Burrow, which I did in one league, I'm trying to get Daniel Jones as like my QB1 to just kind of rock with going forward, which is what a crazy bunch of words to come out of my mouth here this early in the football season. Give me some more quarterback options that people can look at.
Yeah, with all these quarterback injuries, we got to find some others. Michael Penix Jr., I've talked about him before. I think he's joined that high-end quarterback too, kind of potentially some weeks where he gets into the QB1 mix. Didn't do us any favors on Sunday night. That was a tough matchup against that Vikings defense. But we just had Drake London come back from an injury. We had Darnell Mooney come back. Let's see these guys get another week removed from those injuries, a little bit healthier, some better matchups coming up. I think Penix has showed us enough so far that he is very comfortable out there, more comfortable than some of the other second-year quarterbacks, that's for sure. And he's got the weapons around him. I've been mentioning Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts looking okay right now. So, yeah, I think this is a situation where Penix Jr. is an option you could go to. You're not going to feel good about having him as your starter long-term, but somebody that you can trust for a short stint when you have some of these other injuries that you're dealing with. And I think in week 3, he's going to be a decent streaming option. Now, if you have to go deeper than that, we got some guys where if their starters are out, you could look to playing these guys. Mac Jones, he's going up against the Cardinals. I mean, had a decent fantasy game against the Saints, right? And we know that Kyle Shanahan offense, they've helped quarterbacks produce for fantasy in the past. 279 and 3 touchdowns for Mac Jones. Again, I know it was against the Saints, but getting a little bit healthier there, having Juwan Jennings back is great. And, even with the injuries, with Brandon Ayuk not around yet, with George Kittle not around, even with those injuries, they're finding ways to put up points. And that's because they have so many talented players in that offense that can make it easy for a guy like Mac Jones. So I think he's someone to look at. We mentioned other guys, and it's getting a little riskier, but Tyrod Taylor is somebody that runs around a little bit still. So if Justin Fields is out this week, you could look to start him, little Konami code type guy. And Marcus Mariota, same situation where if he has to step in there for Jayden Daniels, he's going to run a bit. I mentioned some of the stats earlier in the show that he put up in last year's games when he got some action. I think he will be a fine kind of QB2 guy, not really a crazy high ceiling, but a guy who's going to have a decent floor for you in fantasy just because he's going to run the ball, and they have decent weapons in Washington as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you called out Michael Penix. I have a disturbing amount of Jayden Daniels fantasy teams, and at least one of them, maybe two of them actually, I do have Michael Penix as the QB2 just because it's a league that, one of them's a guillotine league, so there's nobody on the waiver wire. And I'm looking at that Panthers matchup thinking those Drake London panic emails are going to age pretty poorly with Michael Penix and Drake London dropping heaters all over the Panthers defense in week 2. And I will say Mac Jones, pretty damn impressive game for Mac Jones. I mean, the play is over if he needs to create at all, but this offense does present answers to you. McCorkle Jones found him, he played pretty well under pressure against the Saints. So I think he's a decent flyer as well. Let's move to the running back position. Boone, doesn't look like we have any league winners, available right now, but there's some players that we should be highlighting here.
Yeah, I want to mention a few guys. Normally, I just look at players that are under the 50% rostered mark because I don't think there's any point going over that. But because running back has kind of been boring so far, I've last week looked at a guy like Quinshon Judkins, who was just over that 50% rostered mark, and then he ended up starting last week, which was great, put up some stats there. So that ended up being a good pickup if he was available in your league. This week, we have a few that are also in that range, just above the 50% rostered mark. The first one, Cam Scatterbo, he started to assert himself in that Giants offense. He's slow. Yes, he almost looks like a fullback at times out there, and yet he's running with attitude. He's a factor in the passing game. And we saw the way it was infectious for the offense, right? In that game against the Cowboys, in the second half, he got way more opportunities than Tyron Tracy Jr. And I think a part of it is just because the way Scatterbo runs, the team gets fired up behind him. He found the end zone in this game, went 11 for 45 and a touchdown, also caught 2 passes for 14 yards. The game went to overtime, so that bumps that up a little bit, but still a guy that I think moving forward is going to take over the starting role in New York. So if he's still available in your league, you want to go out and get him. Bashal Tutin, every fantasy analyst's favorite player. We've all talked about this guy, what he could become in this offense. And I don't think that he's going to come and take Travis Etienne's job right away because Travis Etienne's playing pretty well right now in that Jags offense. All the other things that we said about the passing game, the running attack is actually pretty good at the moment. So this is one where down the road, if we have an injury potentially happen or over time, maybe we see Tootin take over that job. But in the short term, he showed us he can be a pretty good flex play for you, right? 8 for 42 on the ground, 2 for 32, and a touchdown through the air. So he's got himself into that status where he's an RB3 flex option who has immense upside if something happens to Travis Etienne. He's another guy you got to go out and get. And then the last one I'll mention, Trey Benson, 52% rostered right now, but the opportunities are increasing for him this season, and he's someone else who's put himself into that conversation as an RB3 flex option who has top 15, top 20 upside if James Conner ends up getting an injury at some point. So I just want to mention those guys before we go on and talk about anyone else, because if they are by chance available in your league, you have to be very aggressive and go and get them.
No question. They could all be kind of, if anything happens to the starters. I mean, even Cam Scatterbo might be the starter right now. I mean, he definitely took over the backfield in the second half and overtime. Like that whole, hey, it's Tyron Tracy's backfield report from the offseason. That lasted like 1 week. Even Devin Singletary nominally started over Tyron Tracy in the offseason. I feel like it could go back and forth. Who knows? But right now, Cam Scatterbo's got to be considered the guy to have there in that Giants backfield. Tyler Algier, that's another player you want to mention here.
Yeah, and again, somebody else that's put himself into the conversation is an RB3 flex, and Algier's not going to take Bijan Robinson's job by any means. If something happened to Bijan Robinson, we already know that Tyler Algier is a guy that can step in and put up good stats because he's got a 1,000-yard campaign on his resume back from his rookie season. But I want to mention it because we just saw him have an 80-yard, 1-touchdown effort this week against the Vikings. He gets an even easier opponent next week with the Panthers. Last year in the 2 games against the Panthers, he racked up 177 scrimmage yards in those games, also scored a touchdown. So, yeah, this is a spot where you're definitely going to want to play him if you need that RB3 flex in your lineup. And, yeah, we're still waiting on, we don't want to see injuries happen, but we're still waiting for injuries to hit, and that kind of makes the running back position a little more interesting for the waiver wire. But at the moment, we're still finding value in some of these guys that might not be starters yet, but can give you some value on the way to potentially being starters if injuries strike.
Yeah, I mean, Raheem Morris apparently told the NBC crew before that game, like, oh, you're going to see what we want to do, and we want to run the football downhill. And that is exactly what they did. And I feel like there's going to be some games like that this year. And in those games, like Tyler Algier might actually have a little bit of standalone value in addition to being a guy that obviously has massive injury upside. So I like that call out there. Let's move to the wide receiver position. Give me your list of guys there.
All right. 2 main ones that I want to highlight here. Troy Franklin on the Broncos. This is just his second season. We're seeing him ascend. We're seeing him take that step forward. I think he was a key member of the Broncos passing attack this week. He's really started to emerge this season. 22 years old, post career highs in week 2, 8 for 89 and a touchdown, adds another 11 yards on the ground. Now, part of me wants to be cautious about the Broncos receivers not named Cortland Sutton because they tend to rotate these guys, but it really seems like Franklin is earning that spot for himself. We still have Marvin Mims Jr. being that gadget type guy. Pat Bryant still trying to work his way up the depth chart. And Evan Ingram, who we thought was going to be a factor at tight end, isn't at all. So Franklin has an opportunity here to keep this going. Very, very excited to go out and get him in a good offense with that college connection with Bo Nix, right? So really like that combo. Wan'Dale Robinson, Harmon, I don't know what you want to say about this, the PPR scam. Wan'Dale Robinson.
I got dunked on, bro.
He's killing it, right? So far this year. Last season, right? 140 targets. And what did he do with it? Not that much. This year, picks up where he left off. 18 targets through 2 games. And yet now we're seeing more of a ceiling, right? Week 1, bit of a standard line for him with 55 yards. But this week, 142 yards and a score. They're getting better quarterback play from Russell Wilson. I think you have to be excited about Wan'Dale Robinson. Him and Troy Franklin in that wide receiver 3 flex type mix. Really, really like those guys as pickups this week. Alec Ayomanor on the Titans. I mentioned him, I believe, at the very end of last week's show as a deep sleeper. If it wasn't on this show, it was on Kevin O'Connor's show. But he's a guy who has stepped up here. He's coming on in that Titans attack. And weirdly, almost matching Calvin Ridley's usage in that offense. It's unexpected to see that from a day 3 rookie. And yet in week 1, it was kind of predictable. That's why I brought this up when we've talked about it before, because week 1, it was just 2 catches for 13 yards. So on the surface, didn't look like anything. but he had 7 targets in that game. It's a 28% target share. He ran 82% of the routes in that game. So you saw that he was getting the opportunity. And then this week he comes out, 4 catches, 56 yards and a touchdown. Just a beautiful play. I mean, it was mostly Cam Ward throwing crossbody and finding him in the end zone, but still to see a day 3 rookie come out and get this kind of usage and to actually produce was great to see. Very happy, and somebody that I think you want to go pick up and see if he can keep this going. And then a guy that you might want to stash, and somebody we talked about before the season, but Christian Kirk on the Texans. I think Christian Kirk, when he gets back, is going to be a big part of this offense. They talked about it before the season, that he was somebody that they really wanted to play in 2 receiver sets, in 3 receiver sets out of the slot, and he's been hurt. So when he comes back, I think he's going to get an opportunity. The question is, when is he going to come back? But we're seeing him drop in terms of his rostership, 34% rostered right now. You can grab him for nothing. There's no risk. Throw him on your bench. And when he's healthy, we'll see if he can become the player that he was just a few years ago when he was a fantasy starter.
The only thing I'll add here, besides the fact that I obviously do owe Wan'Dale Robinson an apology and did apologize to him on the Sunday recap show with Chris Allen, Troy Franklin ran a route on 87.5% of the Broncos dropbacks in week 2. That was just the 4th time since week 1 that anyone other than Cortland Sutton has cleared 80% in that pat, like wide receiver, tight end, running back. The other guys, it's Josh Reynolds in week 1 last year, Lil Jordan Humphrey in week 2, Devon Bailey in week 10. None of those guys are on the team, so maybe that means nothing for Troy Franklin, but I liked what I saw out of Troy Franklin quite a bit after going back and charting that game this morning. So I do believe that there's something there. He is somebody I want to be picking up this week as well. Let's talk tight ends here, Boone. Definitely a position where people are going to need some help.
Yeah, quickly want to mention a few here. Juwan Johnson, somebody that last week I wasn't as excited about. He had the huge opener, right? 11 targets, 76 yards, but he had this matchup with the 49ers defense in week 2. I thought that was going to bring him back down to earth, and nope, not at all. 5 for 49 and a touchdown, getting a ton of targets again, 9 targets in week 2. So now he is inside that top 12 tight ends. He has to be with that kind of usage in that Saints offense where they're throwing the ball a ton. So I really like Juwan Johnson. I'll mention Harold Fannin Jr. again. He's 43% rostered. This is one where I hate the matchup. I don't know that I would play him this week against that vaunted Packers defense, but we saw him come out week 2, slightly fewer snaps, but still a pretty good day. Had 48 yards on 5 targets, caught all of them. He's barely going to miss out on his 2nd straight top 12 performance for fantasy. And to have a guy do that as a rookie is impressive. So I think the opportunity is going to continue for him. I think Fannin Jr. is going to be somebody that's going to be in a lot of fantasy lineups throughout this season. And then I'm going to mention him again. We talked about him earlier, but Isiah Likely as a stash. He's down to just 12% rostered right now. He is going to come back in the next few weeks, maybe even week 3. And when he gets back out there, I think we're going to see a big difference between the way he looks on the field and the way Mark Andrews has looked on the field so far this year. And I think that takeover at the position is going to happen pretty quickly. So likely somebody that could end up inside the top 12 tight ends for fantasy as well as the season goes along.
Love that call out. Yeah, if you're hurting a tight end and like Juwan Johnson and Harold Fannin got picked up last week, Isiah Likely is definitely somebody I'd be looking at. They want to give him a big contract extension. They want to invest in him. And if he's there for week 3 in that matchup against the Lions, could be a lot of points in that game. Final one here, and this one goes right to my heart, buddy. Who is the deep sleeper waiver wire pickup of the week?
We're thinking ahead here. Jalen Coker, he is an IR stash, just 8% rostered. Xavier Legette, I mean, at this point, they shouldn't even be putting him out on the field, right? Like, he's doing nothing out there with his opportunity. They're using Hunter Renfrow. They're using Bryson Tremaine. Like, they need someone else to step up here. Coker is going to be back within the next few weeks. He'll be back in October at some point. And when he comes back, there's a huge opportunity for him in this offense. So I think now's the time to go get him, throw him in your IR spot, and then let's see when he comes back. You're getting ahead of your league mates. When he comes back, you can see if he can actually emerge as a player that Harmon certainly thinks he can be for fantasy.
Absolutely. This is a guy who beat man coverage as a rookie. Like, if they want to keep Hunter Renfrow as a slot receiver, he can play outside. And I do think like they're pretty unserious if they don't at least allow Jalen Coker to push Xavier Legette. He of negative receiving yards on 8 targets and 0.1 0.1 yards per route run right now. They'd be pretty unserious if they don't allow Coker to push for that job. But again, Justin Boone does a great job for us every single week, breaking the waiver wire down. We are reading again in 2025, people, so please go to yahoosports.com and check out Justin Boone's waiver wire article this week and every week. Boone will be back later in the week to preview the full week 3 slate, but that is going to do it for us today. On Tuesday, Ray Garvin joins the show for yet another edition of The Data Dump. We share the 10 stats you need to know heading into week 3. That is going to be live right here, 5 p.m. on YouTube. So make sure you like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. I am personally offended. Until then, we are out.